journalist for human rights, that is of course JHR, is producing dozens of stories across different media outlets in the country. So far, they have produced and published 50 stories in the Gambia this year through its project dubbed Mobilizing Media Fighting COVID-19. The aim is to ensure high vaccine uptake, particularly among women, girls, elderly, and the disabled. Now, JHR is doing on-air and online forums to combat misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation, and of course, fake news around COVID-19 vaccines. Now, we are joined on the line by Lamin Fati, Acting Director of the Gambia Federation for the Disabled, to talk about how could we ensure that COVID-19 vaccines are easily accessed by differently disabled persons and other vulnerable groups. Well, Mr. Fati, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us in this morning's program.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right, thank you very much, sir, for joining us. And we are talking about COVID-19. Of course, like I just said, we are going to discuss with you as a country, or what do you think could be done to make sure that the differently disabled persons or vulnerable groups access to the COVID-19 vaccines. But first, let me ask you, as the director or acting director of the Gambia Federation for the Disabled, what did you, how difficult or easy was it for the persons with disabled to access the COVID-19 vaccines when it was produced, or when it was, given out to the people, to people in this country?
Thank you so much. Good morning. Thank you so much for that question. It will be very good that every Gambian, or whosoever residing in the Gambia here, have a vaccination on COVID-19, because it is something, it's a great measure to control the spread of COVID-19. Looking at the persons with disability in this country, it will be very good for them also to be involved in getting vaccination for the COVID-19. I myself, I did it 2 months back, but there are a lot of PWDs, I can say that have not done the vaccination because there is a gap. And the gap is that access to information is the problem, because when you look at it, we have different categories of persons with disability. We have the visually impaired, and we have the hard of hearing, we have the physically challenged. So all these people are equally important to have access to information, more especially the hard of hearing people, whom you know that they are normally disadvantaged in getting information. I think the gap of information also should be looked into, considered. And there should also be a way of partnering with the Gambia Federation of Disabled. When that partnership is there, then we can make an arrangement and help the health sector or the health department to know how PWDs can involve in this vaccination process. I think that's very important. And the information that they are also giving out to the populace about the vaccination should also be inclusive, that the hard of hearing people should know, the visually impaired people also should know, and the centers also, vaccination also should be very accessible. Yeah, wherever the vaccination centers are located, it should be accessible to every individual. That needs to be prioritized, and that needs to be considered very well. That's the way to involve persons with disability in the process.
All right, interesting. Now, of course, hence we are talking about what could be done to make sure that the vulnerable groups, including, of course, the differently disabled, to access the vaccine. In your perspective, of course, there, like you highlighted, there could be challenges and here and there. But what do you think could be done to make sure that the persons with disabilities or differently disabled could access easily the vaccines? And hence now we are talking about the COVID-19. Pandemic is still in the country, and numbers have been gradually increasing. So what could be done to make sure that everyone, including
is to partner with the Gambia Federation of Disabled. When the Ministry of Health partner with the Federation, then we can make logistics whereby our members, we can orientate them and we can inform them well. There is a vaccination going around, and we can even inform the hard of hearing people to know where these vaccination centers are. And the ministry also needs to make it very accessible. So when we partner, we're able to discuss with them to know where the centers are, then we can accurately inform our members and we can equally engage them to participate in the vaccination. I think that's the best approach. Yeah, when we have that partnership, we can easily facilitate and we can easily mobilize our members to know where the centers are and how accessibility those places are. And we can guide the Ministry of Health also on that part.
All right. As the acting director, so far, are you impressed with the way and how the ministry, who are, of course, responsible for the vaccination, have been supporting the differently disabled or able persons to access the vaccines? Are you been satisfied overall with the mechanism that has been deployed, or you have some concerns that you think could be improved to make sure that, you know?
I have, it has to be inclusive in terms of sharing the information. PWDs, like hard of hearing people, are most of the time marginalized in getting right information. Even at the initial, at the outbreak stage, when the coronavirus was introduced into this country, these people, hard of hearing, they have been marginalized. They have been excluded from getting the right information. So, like the prevention mechanism, the vaccination mechanism, all these approaches should be accessible, and the information also about them should include sign language interpreters. If they are not well informed, they will find it very difficult to make a wise decision or to prevent themselves. The information is the most important thing that they need to make. And that was the gap that happened at the initial stage. COVID-19 came into the Gambia here. Hard of hearing people were not getting the information accurately. They were not knowing how to prevent themselves. They were not knowing where these vaccination centers are. I think it is very important for the ministry to organize themselves or cooperate with the hard of hearing people or the sign language people to ensure that they also get the information about the COVID-19.
All right. Now, of course, you were just saying that there should be coordination, you know, in the process of these giving out the vaccines, or to make sure people access the vaccines. But what do you think? What lessons should be learned moving forward? You know, of course, you highlighted the challenges once again. But what do you think we could learn as a country moving forward to make sure that, you know, to avoid some of the challenges that has happened, or to make sure that the differently able will also be considered in a better way moving forward, to make sure they also easily access the vaccine? Some of the lessons that we could learn to help us better include them. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, repeat yourself, please.
Yeah, I was just saying, what do you think, what lessons can we learn as a country, especially the authorities, moving forward in trying to make sure that the persons with disabilities are being considered most also, or like any other person, to make sure that they also would access the vaccines easily?
The lesson to learn in this is that, one, we need to know that when we talk about, when we're talking about health issue or education,
yes,
disability should not be afterthought.
Okay.
At the initial stage, we need to be involved, and if that happens, then we work as a nation. That's the only way to combat such kinds of challenges that the society is facing. I think that's a lesson that we need to learn, because I could remember there were PWDs who were unlucky to have COVID-19. And one can relate it to this sort of lack of information, because the hard of hearing people were being affected. So one can attribute it to that, because there was not efficient information given to them how to prevent themselves from acquiring the virus. So I think that's a lesson that we need to learn. And once the PWDs are affected with the virus, it means that the whole country is affected, because it can easily be spread out. Every PWD belongs to a family, and every PWD lives in a society. So I think those are lessons that we need to learn. Whatever we have to do, we have to consult the relevant authority on that part, and we have to ensure that there is an inclusivity in our approach. If that is lacking, obviously our actions, there will be a gap in our actions.
Mr. Fadi, I hope you can hear me. Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, I think he's gone.
Hello?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm getting you here now.
Very well. Finally, as I was just saying there, yes, what of message or advice would you send out to the relevant authorities? Have you just
The
mentioned?
message I have for the authority is that let them partner with Gambia Federation of Disabled and let us clearly know where these vaccination centers are so that we can talk to our members and we can inform them. And through that also, we can also advocate for them to have vaccination. When we know where the centers are and wherever they are to put the centers, please let it be very accessible to whosoever to acquire that vaccination. That's very important. That's the message I have. If it is possible, those in the rural community, if we can know if the vaccination centers are located at the major health centers, it will be very good. Then we can mobilize our members, we can talk to them and encourage them to go and have the vaccination. But the places need to be accessible. That's a very important part of it.
All right, Mr. Lamin Fati, thank you very much for your time, and it was a pleasure having you in our program.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. That was Lamin Fati, acting director of the Gambia Federation of the disabled, and we were talking about how could we ensure that, of course, the COVID-19 vaccine is easily accessed by differently disabled persons, and of course the other vulnerable groups in the country. And apparently, we are talking about the number of COVID cases are increasing. So that's something we need to keep talking, and to make sure that everyone, whatever it is, you also access the vaccine. In case if you're